Abortion happens every day. Millions of people around the world will have an abortion each year. But the majority of those people will never talk about their abortion experiences. What if millions of people broke their silence and told the truth about their lives and their choices? This is Melissa Madera in Galway, Ireland, and you're listening to the Abortion Diary podcast. These are the stories we share.
You know, what's funny is that I'm a little anxious because I'm reminded of the stigma associated with abortion. If you say it out loud, people look at you differently if you say it out loud. Okay, so I will say that when I was in college, my freshman year, I was in a terrible relationship with a boy who it was not a healthy relationship to begin with, but I was tolerant, thinking it's okay, I accept you anyways, even though I really didn't want to be in that relationship. Well, when I finally decided to leave the relationship, I found out that I was pregnant. Man, the thoughts that went through my head. First of all, I was in denial because I knew we had unprotected sex several times, but I knew he didn't withdraw fast enough one time, and I just knew something was up, but I didn't want to face it. So a few months passed, and I was working out one day, and after that I felt really sick. And I was like, oh, something's up. My period hasn't come. I called up one of my friends. She said, just take a pregnancy test. So I said, okay. Went to the store, bought the test, and found out I was pregnant. I was just in shock. So I texted my ex-boyfriend, and I told him that I was pregnant, and the first thing he told me was get an abortion via text message. I was heartbroken, in shock, because I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm in this situation. This is crazy. But I was just in shock. So my initial thoughts, prior to even being in the situation, was that I would never get an abortion. I would never do that. But how things change when you're actually in a situation. So the 2 weeks following these text messages, this boy would text me threatening messages, wishing death on me and stressing me out. And I don't mean 1 or 2 text messages a day, but like all day, every day. So I'm thinking in my head, this is crazy, but I have to do what I have to do. I'm going to have this child. With or without him, because I grew up without a father. So I'm like, it's not like it's impossible. Mind you, I didn't tell anybody else that I was pregnant, except for 2 friends who were aware, and they were disappointed in me. Okay. But anyways, so he threatened me every single day. And then one day, he told me that he actually slept with a friend of mine that I told I was pregnant to. He did that to break me, and it definitely did. So I was no longer strong in saying, oh my goodness, I'm going to carry this child anyways. I was heartbroken. And at that point, I was fearless about what other people thought about the pregnancy. So I called my mother, and I told her what was up. She was at work. It's probably not a good idea. And she was silent, in shock. Asked me, how did that happen? She said, I'll call you later. And that's the worst thing that you can hear from a parent, saying, I'm going to call you when I get home. You're just anticipating the worst, right? So she calls me later that day, basically telling me how disappointed she was, but that everything was going to be okay. Everything was going to be fine. But I could tell she was hurt and she was heartbroken. So after dealing with that, my mother was supportive, at least I thought she was initially. I cut off my friend. I cut off everybody. And at that point, I had no friends around. So I was dealing with this by myself. And so I called up my pastor and I said, hey, I'm in this situation. I need help. So I ran to the church, hoping to get some sort of peace and saying, this will all be fine. And they were supportive. Took care of me. When I cried, they called. But then I had a conversation with the ex-boyfriend again. My mother calls me and tells me, how are you going to make it? What are you going to do with this baby? What are your plans? And as somebody who's in shock that she's pregnant, you don't have a plan figured out. I just know that I'm do what I have to do. I don't know what that means. Carry this child. I don't know what that experience is like. But I thought I had her support. So from all of the text messages that my ex-boyfriend was sending, he's saying, we're too young, you're stupid, I hate you, or, just get an abortion. So I'm telling her everything that he's telling me, and she's like, he's right. And that's the last thing you want to hear from your mother, who you think supports you. So when she told me that, I'm trying to figure out, a plan. I'm like, look, I can go home, I can have this baby, go home, have your support, still go to school, I can figure this out, it's okay. She's like, no, you need to stay up there. You don't need to come home and do that. We already have another grandbaby here, and I won't be able to take care of both of them. And that's heartbreaking because I love, my brother's child, but at the same time, being the only girl in the family, I thought, should not be a priority. So I like that support there. So I was like, all right, I'm going to talk to this ex-boyfriend of mine who I've been avoiding, fearful that he's going to do something crazy to hurt me or the unborn child. So I meet with this guy. He's like, I've decided that you can go ahead and have the baby. So the moment he said that, I said, you know what? I'm alone in this, and it's just going to be me. I don't have the support from my family, don't have the support of friends, don't have his support. It's just going to be me, and that's the worst feeling, to feel like you're by yourself. I thought, I'm going to be humiliated around campus. No boy is going to want to date me ever again. Just the feeling of being alone. So after crying and crying and crying, I cried so much I couldn't even cry anymore. I was just numb, going through the motions by myself. I went to get prenatal pills. I went to go get checked and everything. Not sure how I would take care of myself. Not sure how to sign up for health care or anything, So all this paperwork, and I'm fatigued. I'm tired every day from pregnancy. Stomach feeling like it's just unsettled. Not eating. Don't have money to eat, on a regular basis as a college student. So talking to my mother again, she asked me, what are your plans? How are you going to make it? You probably won't make it. You need to stay up there. This is hard. So she wasn't giving me that support that I needed to say I can do it. So then I decided, fine, I'll kill the baby. Fine. And I was numb by that point. So I remember, my ex-boyfriend saying, I'll pay for half, you pay for the other half. So that's initially saying you're agreeing to do this and you're going to be, held accountable because you're paying half and I'm paying half. So this is so weird, the dynamics of that relationship. But I remember going to Planned Parenthood, waiting in the waiting room. They asked for cash, straight up, which I thought was interesting. So I'm sitting there waiting in the waiting room. My mom calls me like, are you there? All right, call me when you get out of there. Not sympathetic, no emotion. My brother's girlfriend gets on the phone like, yeah, I had an abortion and I'm okay, look at me. And even prior to then, I knew, how difficult it could be to go through this process. I didn't take it lightly. And she's like, no, you'll be fine, stop crying. So I get off the phone with them, no support. Dealing with this guy who doesn't really care about me, is just interested in having this abortion. So I go back into the waiting area and they call me in. First thing they do is show me an ultrasound. Not that I could make out anything, but this woman told me I was approximately 8 weeks, which I've learned is kind of like a script, or it could be sometimes. But, she told me how big the baby was at that point. Didn't know what that meant. Didn't know anything about, the development of a child. And and all of that. But I was just numb. She told me that. I said, okay. Took me in another room. They said, watch this video so you know everything you're about to get into. Fill out this paperwork. And I'm just numb. And then she gives me these pills. And she tells me, okay, take one now. And then take one like within a day. So these are these abortion pills. I don't remember the exact name. I don't know. But anyways, so after that, I still had to go to lab for a biology class. So this ex-boyfriend of mine is like, oh, are you okay? I'm going to take care of you for the next few days, which is interesting because he was just threatening me a few weeks prior to that and saying how much he hated me. And then all of a sudden he's trying to take care of me. And he was the only person available to do that. So I relied on him still. But then after that, I went to a lab, did everything I had to do for class, cramping, all that going on. I go back to my dorm room with my roommate, who I wasn't getting along with at the time. We were no longer friends. They see me crying, breaking down. They ask me what's wrong. And me being hard-headed, I was like, no, leave me alone. Having an ego, saying, I don't want you to see me being a weak link, you know. So I'm sitting there bleeding, and it was just so much blood, so much blood. And my mom calls me, and she's like, are you okay? Make sure you change your pad. Are you okay? You have to get up. You have to. So she's concerned, making sure I don't bleed too much to lead to any health issues. I remember so much blood. And then I remember waking up one morning, and I knew I wasn't pregnant anymore. And I thought, okay, this is my second chance. I'm not going to be in this situation again. And that was towards the end of that semester, end of that school year. I was broken. Nobody really knew what was going on. When I would go around campus, people would say, you know, you look like you're going through something, whatever it is, I hope you're okay. I was filled with a lot of shame. I didn't want to be seen by anybody. I cut the world off. And things changed. So yeah, by the end of that summer, you know, I went home and I just ruminated on this. Ruminated on that. Actually, it was before the end of the semester. I'm lying. So it was a month prior to the end of the semester. And I was failing. No, I wasn't failing, but I wasn't doing as well as I wanted to in my classes. So instead of focusing on the traumatic experience that I had gone through, it was traumatic to me anyways, I was focused on my grades. So I made the situation tiny in order to keep surviving, in order to stay sane. And I was focused on schoolwork, which is crazy to me. So after a month, I reached out to, you know, faculty within the university, counselors. And they said, oh, you need to go talk to someone. And me being, you know, having this ego, thinking, no, I'm fine. I'm not weak. I'm not hurt. I'm okay. I need to do well in school. I need to get my grades back up. You know, so counseling didn't really help. So I go home, and that whole summer I'm ruminating on this thing every day. So I was basically depressed. That's what it felt like. I didn't have joy anymore. Same things didn't bring me joy. I was hurt, and I had nobody to tell. You know, so that entire summer I did that, and my mother wasn't apologetic about how she treated me. And we still haven't really quite addressed that to this day. But soon after that, I was just tired of crying. I said, okay, I have to move on with my life. So from that point forward, I, you know, tried to go to retreats for abortions just to get my story out, just to get some sort of closure and healing, and to know that things happen. You move on. It doesn't define you. But for me, it's always been a part of me. And even now I'm realizing that I hold a lot of anger from that experience. I hold a lot of grudges. Because I've kind of messed up in school, I'm still trying to compensate for that. Even though I'm not in the same situation, I find myself trying to correct that situation. But I would say it made me stronger. Definitely more vocal about what I want. Making sure nobody else makes a decision for me. And helped me to realize that I don't want any immature boys anymore. It helped me recognize a real man when I saw one, which worked out, apparently. And it made me sensitive to women's health in a way that has really shifted my trajectory, and I'm in a place now where I didn't think I would be. This wasn't the plan. I didn't plan on being so interested in women's health and maybe making a career out of it. So I'm sensitive to the issues because I've been there. So it's kind of helped me and hurt me at the same time.
What made you decide to do medication abortion instead of a surgical abortion? And how was that experience in your dorm room going through a medication abortion?
Well, I was early enough in my pregnancy to where I could do that still, or at least I thought I was. I didn't really know. But in talking to the ex-boyfriend, I thought, if I'm too far along and I have to get the suction, I don't want to do it. Because I felt like that would be a little too much for me. But I was early enough in the pregnancy to get the medical, or what do you call it? Medical abortion. So I don't think they asked me which one I wanted. It was just the go-to. Because I was early enough in pregnancy.
Are you thinking about addressing your abortion and your experience with your mother?
I mean, currently? Oh, man.
Maybe not now, but in the future.
Oh, in the future, I've learned a lot about my mother and just the hard life that she's had. And as I get older, I realize, she has her flaws and issues and anger issues and all of that. And the way she deals with problems that she has with other people, she's unapologetic. And that's a hard truth. And I think it still impacts our relationship now. And I've tried to have those conversations, but she's just like, I thought you were over that. Close that chapter, move on. It's very hard. So, when I think about the future and me having children, I'm like, I don't even want to tell her. I still hold on to that experience, but hopefully when she becomes a little bit more soft as she gets older, maybe we can have that conversation. But for now, it's just not going to meet my expectations. So I keep it moving. And my anger, I'm more hurt than angry. So it doesn't like I'm not going to blow up one day and say, I hate you, But it's just that thought in the back of my mind. When you say, oh, I love you so much and I'm proud of you, I think about that. I think about, yeah, okay. Still love her. But I question her love. Yeah.
I also wondered if you could talk a little bit about the retreats you went to and how you've been able to process your abortion experience.
Okay. So in my second year of college, so I had the abortion in my first year of college. I met a girl through my church. We were she was actually invited to the lunch that I had with my friend. And then out of nowhere, she starts talking about her abortion story because she's so comfortable and she's healed from that, in her own time. She's like, yeah, I had an abortion and think about holding this Bible study on abortion so that it could bring healing to other women. And I'm like, this woman sitting across from me, I've never met her before, and all of a sudden she's talking about abortion. So it's funny how I came to, reach out for help. I actually had my wisdom teeth taken out because I was ruminating on these things constantly. They were on my mind all the time, and I just wanted to get rid of these thoughts and just be happy again. So I remember sitting there with the laughing gas, feeling extra good, and I'm just pouring out my heart in prayer, Lord, I just want to forgive and move on. And I'm telling you that I had so much peace after that. And then I meet her. So it was time for me to get out there and meet somebody. So with this Bible study in my second year, we went through Surrendering the Secret. I don't know if you've heard of that little handbook, but it's kind of like a Bible study for women who have had abortions. So just reminding you that you're forgiven, that God doesn't base his love off of your actions, and that, there's no stigma and there's no point of being in shame or anything. Life happens. So that gave me a way to kind of reconnect and say, you know what? I'm not a terrible person. It didn't still bring about complete healing. So I was still dealing with anger issues towards the ex-boyfriend, my mom, the place I was in, my peers. I was just mad at everybody. So then I met my significant other, and I was like, okay, I really got to do something about this anger. So I went to another retreat held within the state. And in this place, we just sat, around in a circle and just told our stories. And there were some women who had gone through, so this is like 3 years later, I think, 2 years later anyways. There were some other young women who had just had an abortion, and I saw the pain that they were in. And I was like, I used to be in that place, but I'm not there now. I'm still not completely healed, or at least in the way I'm thinking of it, but I'm not broken like they were. So it made me realize that I am making progress after all, that things are getting better after all. And I was able to kind of surrender that there and leave it alone and not feel shameful anymore. So that was just a retreat, a 3-day retreat, just talking to the other women, being reminded that, I'm not alone. It was nice. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of self-reflection during that time. And then, I think that was the last thing I did for that. And I felt empowered because of my experience. I said, kind of like you are with your project. I'm like, I want to do something about this. I want the world to know these stories. I can make this into a project. So that kind of really triggered my interest, and I felt empowered and felt like this was for a purpose. Yeah. Well, what's funny is that I volunteer for a crisis pregnancy resource center, which of course is not their name officially. So my desire was to kind of lead those Bible study groups as somebody who has gone through it, to say, okay, you can surrender this, the Surrendering the Secret Bible study. So that was my goal. So when I went to them, I was like, I'm really interested in kind of being that support system that I didn't have, because I knew nothing about these pregnancy centers when I was going through it, and I kind of wish I did. So I volunteered not to judge, but to kind of remind them that they have agency and they have choices. So I volunteered there for a few months, but then I started to realize that the culture was one in which I didn't appreciate. There was a lot of condemnation, there was a lot of judgments, people saying, I'm going to help these people. I didn't like that rhetoric, that language, so I decided not to help out there anymore. But I find it difficult within academia to focus on abortion studies, because science says, there are no connections between these two constructs. Like, there's nothing there. And of course, politics. And I just feel like, well, maybe I can't do it now, but maybe in the future I would like to do something associated with this, use my story to help other women. But I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. But my interest within women's health kind of leaves that option open for the future.
What do you mean by, like, they would help these people?
Like women that come in, young girls who might see, that's the rhetoric I didn't like us versus them. They're not, they're out here having sex knowing they shouldn't be, or they're pregnant, or they have an STD. Let's help these people. The goal was to help the child before the mother. And I thought, well, let's see the person for who they are. Let's try to encourage them. And I also felt like, as somebody who wasn't trained in anything, I couldn't really help outside of just being supportive, which frustrated me too. But it was just this mentality that, we have to help these people who aren't on the right track. Because I was one of those people, so I didn't say us versus them. It was us, That's what I meant. So I would say that what got me to even go to like graduate school was this vision, this fire and desire to educate, to be a support system for other women who were in similar circumstances. But being more trained, I guess, to have my own nonprofit organization. So that's the vision still. It's like I haven't veered off from that. I just haven't figured out how it's going to happen. But that was my goal. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I just knew that I wanted to create more discussions on this, to have a place where women can come and talk about, what they're going through, to get healing, whatever way they deem appropriate, but just to be a safe haven. I know that's really broad, but that's as far as I've thought about it.
How did being a Christian play a role in how you have been processing your own experience?
Okay. So initially, I felt like a terrible person. I thought I'm violating everything I believe in to say that I'm going to intentionally kill this unborn baby for my own benefit in the future. That's how I thought about it. And I felt terrible. I felt sick. But then I thought, I put myself in this situation, so I need to own up to it. And I need to accept it for what it is. But I tell you what, the morning I thought, or I knew I wasn't pregnant anymore, I actually woke up with a song on my heart. I don't know, is it Donnie McClurkin? His song, Great is Your Mercy Towards Me, Your Love and Kindness I See, Day After Day, or something like that. Mind you, at that point, I didn't listen to gospel music very often. So I felt that was a message saying, you're forgiven, know that you are. But at that point, I didn't forgive myself. I had to pull myself out of that and say, I ain't the bigger force here, and it don't matter what I think. So in processing it, I've had to be vulnerable, understand that I had to heavily rely on the Lord to get through that state of sadness. Because before then, I wasn't focused on my Christianity at all. It wasn't central to my being. But then after that, it kind of pushed me to say, I have to choose who I'm going to be. What do I agree with? And how do I avoid situations like this again? But it's made my faith stronger because I know I'm forgiven. So for somebody who doesn't know the Lord, I know that I can say, you know what? I've sinned. You've sinned. But, He loves me anyways. And this is how He can love you too. And processing it, I still hold on to some anger. So I wouldn't say, some areas of my relationship aren't what they're supposed to be. But I had to rely on Him heavily to get me through that. And I know that I am here because of what happened and that there played a purpose in that. So looking at the bigger picture spiritually anyways, knowing that even in my mistakes, everything worked out for my good. It reaffirms what I do know. And it's helped me to be stronger because He showed Himself even when I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. So it all worked out. I don't know if that answered the question, but
It did.
Yeah, okay.
Why do you want to share your story?
I want to share my story because, first of all, I don't do this often. I don't know, via Facebook or Twitter, you always feel like some people just want to know your business. But this right here has a purpose specifically for women who feel like they're alone. So this provides a great way to share my story and to use it with purpose. So that's why I wanted to share my story.
So you say you're really careful with who you share it with. Have you shared it often? Or?
I wouldn't say often. There are some people who I trust, who I open up to. I have opened up to a handful of people, but I've shared it with other women who are considering abortion. I've shared it with women I've encountered at this Crisis Pregnancy Resource Center, just to show them that, may be Christians, but we've had some experiences too. And I can share my story with you. It doesn't mean that you're going to go through this the same way, but just know that this was my reality, so I understand. So in order to connect with somebody who may be in the same situation, or just to share how I'm feeling with somebody else, like a friend, that's when I'll share my story.
And how have people reacted to your story?
Some friends are like, oh my goodness, I had no clue, because I told them like 2-3 years after. I know my significant other, he wasn't surprised. He was like, I respect you more. So that was great. And it was the first time I realized, like, I'm not this oddball. You know, it could be something that can empower the next person, and it could be seen as a strength for, getting through a situation.
Yeah. So you feel good about sharing it here?
Yeah. I mean, it just reminds me of the chaos. I used to cry every time I tell that story. But it blows my mind that, it's like a faint memory, even though I remember every single thing.
As always, for more information about the Abortion Diary podcast, visit us on the web at theabortiondiary.com or email me with your questions or comments. If you would like to share your story, send me an email at melissa@theabortiondiary.com or visit our website, click on Share Your Abortion Story, and fill out our contact form. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to help us reach more folks, please subscribe on iTunes and write a review or rate this podcast. Your reviews and ratings will help us grow in the iTunes rankings and reach more people. I would also love to hear from you. You can also follow The Abortion Diary on Twitter or Facebook. And The Abortion Diary can't continue without your support. Support The Abortion Diary by making a tax-deductible donation to us on Fractured Atlas, or buying some of our wristbands or totes on Store Envy. And a special thanks to you for listening. I'll be back next week with a new story.